Welcome back to Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. This is your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest. That's about the 10th time I've done this intro. And do you know how crazy that sounds? I feel like I'm saying, Dormammu, I've come to bargain. No, it is like the 20th time I've done this. Really, I've done it like 30 times. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. This is Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. I'm your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. I am not even kidding. It's not self-consciousness. It's like the dog barking, or it's one thing or another. We're getting the engine started today at Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. We have references. We are not your everyday MCU After Show or Marvel After Show. And we as in me. And I hope you are patient with me as I get my episodes out. And I hope you are doing wonderful today. And it's great to be here with you. And we're here to cover another What If episode. What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? Now, this is some really, let's say, fragile territory for me, as in Iron Man is one of, if not my favorite MCU films. It launches the MCU. It's the first entry. We covered it on this show. If you haven't, go check it out. We literally, I say we when it's just me. I love that. But it's the podcast in a sense. And when I say we, I consider the Marvel Maniacs and the people who have listened to that episode. That's the we. That's the we. It's the Avengers in us. We were listening to Iron Man. We watched Iron Man, and I covered that. So you should listen to that episode. And well, yeah, it's kind of crazy to see another alternate universe in which Tony Stark doesn't get into the cave and put the suit on and become what we know him to be. And yes, this is not like the last few episodes. I have seen this episode, but we will be breaking it down. We'll go through the moments. And for one reason, it's that I'm not as familiar with Killmonger's story. I love Black Panther, but I haven't seen it as many times as I have all the other MCU films, which would be a great reason to go back and break it down, like similar to had we done Iron Man and Captain America, Thor, all the other ones. I think we should go back to all the movies at one point, really, and go through them. And that would be fantastic. But for now, let's go through What If Killmonger Rescued Tony Stark. So the episode begins with the Watcher in the sky. He's appearing more and more prevalent in each episode, forming in more human form, I guess you'd say. Every journey has a beginning, but change one step along the way, and you could end up at a very different destination, the Watcher says over the very opening shot recreated of the MCU. So we get right into the Iron Man sequence of events. We don't get any AC/DC. Now, I can't help but reference the new Rockstar first video they put out, because I definitely saw that. And this is I'm definitely wiring into some of the stuff they said. Like, I watched it. I think I watched it today. They said, no AC/DC. I love them. They're fantastic on YouTube, new Rockstars. I think I'm a fan. Peace. I love Peace. I'd be out of a job with Peace. It literally feels like time travel. They recreate pretty much exactly the scene of him taking the picture with the guy. Condensed, obviously, like skipping the MySpace joke. The episode does a great job of recreating that shock and awe feeling of Tony Stark getting bombarded by that attack, which is absolutely brutal. You know, it's just really well done and similar to the movie, but it also has its own tone. The art is really, really good in the show. I appreciate it, and I think each episode kind of does its own thing in the art department, but because to try and match the tone of the movie that it's matching, and this episode's going for Black Panther meets Iron Man. It's a mashup of the two movies. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of like a mashup album, like Jay-Z Linkin Park. This is like Iron Man and Black Panther. I'm not even kidding. It's crazy how far it goes there in this one. It literally claws its way there. Get it? Ulysses claws its way there. what a crazy episode. This episode's actually insane. I was on the verge of not liking it as much, but now that I've had a little time to think about it, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I've had like a couple minutes, and it's settling on me that where is this going to go? I mean, I see the thing is, every episode that they've had this season of What If has left on a cliffhanger nearly. And except for Doctor Strange Supreme, which, if we know from any trailer ever, we've seen them assemble with Doctor Strange Supreme in this multiverse. I feel like I've seen them in a circle together, assembling like the Avengers, right? Am I wrong? So, what in the world? what if and what in the world is going to happen to get all them together, and how? How will it happen? Like in 1 or 2 to 3 episodes left? Is there literally going to be a definitive season 2, or is each show going to spin off into a multiverse of madness? Like, is each show spinning off? Is each episode like a pilot episode to a series, and like each episode seriously the beginning of a new series, maybe secretly? So, as we see in the trailer, Stark runs to the ground as he usually does, as we know it, in the sacred timeline where all is glorious and it has all the purpose. We know Killmonger comes in and takes the missile that lands directly next to Stark and swoops it away. He comes out of nowhere. He has a bigger plan than ever before. As quoted, Emergency Awesome, YouTube. Marvel What If Episode 6, Iron Man, Killmonger, Top 10 Breakdown, Easter Eggs Ending Explained. Go check Emergency Awesome on YouTube out. I don't think I've given them quite enough credit. Amazing content. Check them out. Tony tells Killmonger that it was a spectacular entrance, and Killmonger tells Tony that the 10 rings have reinforcements en route. Let's move. The 10 rings. So do we know if it's related to Shang-Chi? I believe it is. Because in Shang-Chi, for those of you who have seen it, slight spoilers, we know that the 10 rings have been around for a long time. That's all I'll say. And we're going to be covering Shang-Chi and the 10 rings here on Marvel Maniac within the next month, I'll say. I'm going to be going over the movie. I'm going to need to go see it again. Because I saw it and came home intending to cover it, and it's just very hard for me personally. I'm just going to say it. The way I cover shows on here, it's beat by beat. I go through the movie with the computer in front of me. I go through the movie. And I'm not used to covering things without it in front of me. So it's a challenge for me to come home and just talk about the whole movie. I want the movie in front of me. So I guess I can either A, wait until Disney Plus release, or B, go see it again, just come back and talk about it. What would you like as a Marvel Maniac, as a listener? Tweet us or email us at Marvel Maniac Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. What do you think? Which way would you like to hear me react to Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings? I want to hear your feedback. Your feedback's greatly appreciated. It will be read on the show, most likely. And also, if you listen to the show, it'd go a mile times 100 if you go and rate it wherever you listen to it. It goes further than you think if you just give it the 5 stars or the thumbs up, or if you leave a comment, a positive one, or a generally good one, or none at all. That'd be good. If you got this far in and you want to leave a negative comment, why don't you just low key get out of here? Now we know this isn't RDJ voicing Tony Stark. They couldn't afford him, I'm guessing, and that is a reference. So he gets Tony out, and he does it with force. He shoots his way out of the desert, and this shocks and awes Tony in a different way. He woos Tony, as we would say. He doesn't Agent Woo Tony, he just woos Tony. We haven't met Agent Woo yet. You've yet to see Agent Woo in What If, and that is a problem with me. We need more Woo. Need more woo. In the movie Black Panther, it is told that Killmonger got his name in Afghanistan. And look, this is Afghanistan, and his name is Killmonger on his jacket. Tony asked, what is that, German? And then he takes out a bunch of soldiers, and he's like, oh, that's clearly a good fit. That's where they got. I see where they got it. He asked him what's this afternoon like, and they just walk off together. And yeah, I'm sure he took him back to the airport, I'm guessing, and they flew off home. And this is where Killmonger's theme comes in, and that's this really bass bumping. What I remember is this music in Black Panther came in real bump. This is sick. I love this, man. So when this music comes in right here, it comes in over the Watcher saying, heroes are not born, they're forged in darkness. Now this music's playing over Iron Man, hammering his iron in the original. This is all animated versions of Iron Man's best moments. You can rewind and watch this a couple times. We got some great gifts out of this. This is really good. This small segment of things. This is sick. I like this animated moment of Iron Man in the cave. The Avengers assembling together, shaped in battle. And then we see Iron Man, literally Tony, at the end of Endgame, on his knees with the Infinity Stones in his hands. All like reanimated. I imagine they animate right over the movies, or I don't know what they do, but it looks great. And he says, I am Iron Man, and does a snap. Without Tony Stark's faithful capture in Afghanistan, the age of Iron Man would never come to pass. I kind of like getting a better look at the Watcher when he says all this stuff. He's like looking you right in the eye now. Before, he's kind of hiding in the shadows, telling you all this from afar. He's talking to us, but now he's looking like right at us. He's more like direct. He's like almost like, I'm really uncomfortable and I'm about to do something here, guys. I'm about to get up, just so you know. Things are about to go down, and things aren't gonna happen without me getting involved. But I can't get involved. But I'm about to. Like, I love it. Because, dude, I don't know. At the beginning of the show, it wasn't that. That wasn't gonna happen. I don't know. I feel like it just wasn't supposed to happen. Even though it wasn't. Like, it felt like one-offs. And this show has somehow exceeded that. It's very good in that sense. And I've seen some criticism about the voice acting, and yeah, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. It's whatever. So we go down into the meeting, and this is where we get to see some reassembled Iron Man scenes. And this is the press conference where Tony would come back and eat the cheeseburger on the ground. And so we start off with the Watcher saying, the age of Iron Man would never come to pass, and though the man was saved, a hero was lost, and a villain was given a new chance. Tony was asked if he was injured in the attack, and he says no, but he spilled his drink in 96 Macallan, which he's pretty sure it was a war crime. He learned the lesson asked by a reporter that he should never travel anywhere without a Four Seasons. When asked if this experience has changed him, he repeats the line, I saw young Americans killed by the very weapons I created to protect them, and I realized we have to do better. Build bigger and fight better for them. So we get opposite. Which is why I'm bringing in Lieutenant Eric Stevens, the Lieutenant Navy SEAL who saved my life as a Stark Industries' new Chief Security Officer, which was going to be Happy's job. So we get to see Happy a little bummed out on the side. Killmonger and Tony salute each other and give each other a hug, like a warm embrace, like for the cameras. And then Obadiah Stane walks in the frame. Obadiah Stane, the guy who completely set all this up and got Tony like hijacked and killed, to be killed in the first place. So he walks up. This is like a pretty satisfying moment here. And then we get Christine Everhart in the audience. She's the same actress too, and the same character from the movie. So she asked Killmonger what he was doing out there, and Tony says, if you're implying that he had advanced knowledge of the attack, and Killmonger comes right out and says, yeah, I knew. Obadiah Stane was planning an attack to kill Tony, and he has all the proof right here. Obadiah tries to stop it, and Killmonger's like, oh yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? I love it. I just love this drama playing out from the end of Iron Man, where I think sometimes at the end of Iron Man, I'm like, if they'd settled this earlier, it'd just be a couple guys in suits just arguing, you know? But like at the end of the movie, it's just this guy, Obadiah, just yelling in this giant suit, you know? Like, it's just so obscene, you know? In that movie, that of itself, before all the Thanos stuff, when that movie was just a movie, these two guys started the movie like businessmen and ended the movie in giant metal suits fighting each other. And there's something kind of ridiculous and silly about that. But in this universe, they settle things in the meeting right here through Killmonger. But that's not the best scenario. This isn't good. This obviously shocks and awes everyone when Obadiah says, let's get out of here and work through this. I don't know what he's talking about. And Killmonger replies, don't you worry about that. I brought receipts, wire transfers, bank documents, phone records. Google it. I just dropped it all online. And everyone goes nuts in the crowd. And then Happy's like, I knew it. He says he never liked that guy. Tony says the new guy makes for good TV, and he holds his arm up. Later at a giant party at Tony's, we see the two celebrating, and he makes Killmonger his COO, and he gives that to Pepper later on, and he gives it to him right away. He says we'll be like Butch and Sundance. Pepper reminds Tony that they died at the end. They click their drinks. Killmonger says to killers, and yeah, it all doesn't feel quite right. And Pepper always seems very weary of Killmonger. She walks outside to Colonel Rhodes, voiced and looking like Don Cheadle. So we got a Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard situation. Another void in the crazy, ever collapsing sacred timeline. So Don Cheadle is just completely in. We got him from the beginning now. Except this movie is all messed up. This isn't Iron Man, guys. I love this. I really love that they got Don. I just like this. I like that they're doing this. What do you think? Do you think they're going to get Terrence Howard? It'd be actually more miraculous, honestly, if they went and got Terrence Howard to come back and do his part. Anyway, Pepper asked what is going on with Killmonger to Rhodey. She asked for a breakdown. Graduated Annapolis at 19, MIT a year later, he says. Made quite a name for himself since joining the SEALs as an elite ghost squad that specializes in high-target wet work. All in all, I say he's done pretty good for a kid from Oakland. So at this point, Rhodey's not really concerned. He asked what's Pepper's concern because she was a little reactionary to the wet work, because she asked what is that plumbing, and he says assassinations. Pepper says a lot of people come around looking to get their moment in the sun with Tony Stark, and it's her job to sniff out exactly what it is she wants from them. This movie's throwing the antagonist of Black Panther versus the hero of Iron Man, and then the antagonist just takes over both movies and wins. It's kind of nuts. And like he literally rips the fabric of both of those movies. This series really takes leaps. So Tony takes Killmonger into his garage and he says, "Welcome to Candyland. I built everything here myself." And it's really good to see Tony's garage again, even in animated form. It's sick to be back. He says he built everything himself except for the Lambo. That's 3D printed. There's a tiny version of the Jericho, a portable firearm, which is the gun, the giant missile Tony shows off at his first demonstration in Iron Man. It's a nice little detail. I like little tiny details like this. This is what an Easter egg. Killmonger aims the gun at Tony and he says, "I bet she pops." And he replies, "Easy, killer. I come in peace." And Killmonger replies a line that Tony's own dad used to say: "Peace means having a bigger stick than the other guy." And Tony says, "A lot of good it did, old dad. How about you? Are you close with yours?" And Killmonger says, "No, gang violence." And From what we remember in Black Panther, he didn't die to gang violence. We know he died to the Black Panther, and his whole story is based off of revenge. We know this. The reason he's doing this in this episode is to get to the throne in Wakanda, and become the Black Panther. So he's lying. Tony says weapons in the wrong hands, which no one had to fire them at all, and he throws his weapon, the gun, on the table. Tony Stark, the good in him, is there. Killmonger replies, "For real." Then again, he developed plans for a automated combat drone. He says he thought he was going to make human soldiers obsolete, but could never crack the interface. And Tony, he immediately says, because he didn't have me, let's do this, let's build your science fair project. Tony immediately wants to do this. "You saved my life, I'd like to return the favor," he says. Killmonger smiles and returns the favor. The thing is, in this episode, at this point, I really did believe, my first viewing, that Killmonger could have had very good intentions, and things could have gone very different, and he could have suited up to be Iron Man. And there's a highly disappointing factor that's not what happened here. There's a huge factor, but there's also an appreciation factor in retrospect too, that the things played out the way they did, and it's not the fact that it didn't play out with the Iron Man thing. It goes to show the theme of the show stays in line with its actual themes, in terms of the events of time. They're tricky. They're going to actually fall closer in line. Killmonger is going to stick to his story. He, no matter what, Tony's great influence and good isn't going to fall over Killmonger, no matter what. This is the story of Killmonger just having a different plan to get to the throne. So, in my opinion, I thought at the beginning that maybe, going into this episode, my expectation was that Killmonger would suit up as Iron Man and become the hero of this Infinity Saga, of their timeline, of their universe. But, however, this wasn't the case. You can't rely on your expectations. This is a different story. Tony searches the MIT database for Project Liberator, as Killmonger states. They pull up the hologram on the table, and Tony says, "Bold design choice." And Killmonger replies, "I like anime." And you can tell, his outfit in the early episode was very anime. Tony says, "Worst case scenario, we'll end up with the world's most expensive Gundam model." And he asks Jarvis to bring him a bunch of stuff, including Bloody Marys, because the hangover's starting to kick in. And Jarvis, voiced by Vision, Paul Bettany, he comes into this one too. Awesome. We get a great montage, very similar to the montage of the Iron Man building scene. So we are following the timeline of Iron Man very closely here, which is fantastic. And Killmonger's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, while Stark is doing a lot of the tech. But as we know, Killmonger is also a genius. He's an MIT grad, so he also goes in on the tech. So we see Tony and Eric working together, side by side. Tony's expanding the hologram, throwing it side by side. They're looking at its inner workings. Human pilots mean human error, but with Jarvis at the wheel, drones can react to stimuli in real time, and no one needs to lift a finger, Tony says. Now, Killmonger is shadowboxing, and the drone is doing everything he does. And now he's facing a prototype drone. It falls in front of him, and Tony says it's only a failure if it explodes, and then it explodes. And Killmonger looks at the camera, and he's like, "Okay, that changes things." It's such a great parody of that scene, that montage in Iron Man, where everything's going wrong, and Tony's suit's flying all over the place. Later, we got Tony laying on the ground throwing a baseball, and he's next to a box of pizza. One slice left. Killmonger sitting next to him. And this is where he's deciding, Tony, that he needs another power source. And he says, "Hey, if we could miniaturize an arc reactor, No, that's a dumb idea. Oh my gosh. So he's really just this Tony Stark. Tony Stark in this series in general. Can we just recap? I mean, the first episode of What If, I'd like to think, I'd hope that Captain Carter runs into Iron Man and that he's okay in this one. The second episode of What If, okay, Tony Stark's fine, I guess. Third episode of What If, he dies. Okay, so he dies 3 episodes in a row. It happens so much, so quickly. He dies in 3 episodes of What If, and it feels like a lot. He dies in the 3rd episode of What If, very, very traumatically, though. He gets completely obliterated, and then he also dies as a zombie, and that was also pretty traumatic, right? And then we're about to see again. So they're very definitive deaths. On top of, death teases in all the movies, and then the finale. We know how Tony goes in Endgame. So to give us all this again, it's almost to say, like, we're going to give you all these deaths again just because we were going to plan on bringing Tony Stark back one day. I said it. Killmonger suggests vibranium. With enough juice, it can act as a self-sustaining energy source. Tony says, yeah, now you're thinking. Too bad Pops used up the last of it during the war. And he replies, not all of it. And Killmonger takes out his necklace with his ring of vibranium. Great shot of Tony reacting to that, the animation of it. I have to react to some of the animation here. He tosses the ring into a suspension field, and a holographic dome appears over them. Tony asks him where he got it, and Killmonger replies that it comes up all over the globe, you just gotta have a hookup. And Tony says he might have just the guy. And later we see a hologram of, and at the same time Pepper saying, Ulysses Claw? No, Tony, absolutely not. Yeah, it's great. We get right into the Tony's blacklist. We learn much later of Tony's dealings with Ulysses Claw in the MCU, but we get this in this episode. He goes straight to the vibranium. Tony replies, "Are you allowed to say that to people in my tax bracket?" Like, geez. Pepper replies and reminds Tony that Stark Industries doesn't fraternize with black market arms dealers. Okay, so at this point we get the moment where, like, Killmonger starts to make his move, and this is exactly where he gets what he wants. And I can't stand watching it because it's with those moments you love the villain but you hate the villain because he's playing the room. He's playing the hero. It's an anti-hero story. It's not even anti-hero. It's just anti. I don't like to watch Tony Stark get played around like this because he's one of my favorites, but it's also a unique story. This isn't my favorite episode. It's not a bad episode, and it's not even that it's anywhere near that. It's just the outcome and what we have to go through, and it's just the betrayal in it. We just know where Tony's relationship with Rhodey goes. We know where Tony's relationship with Pepper goes. We know everything that Tony goes on to do. So it just kind of hits a little harder knowing that it gets cut off so early and so fiercely. Killmonger says things go south, shareholders are going to flip unless we secure some kind of diplomatic cover. Then Tony himself suggests that they send Rhodey because he's U.S. Air Force. And of course, Killmonger thinks that's a wonderful idea. And Pepper rolls her eyes right at that. Tony says, perfect, I's dotted, T's crossed. Pepper, up the purchase order. We are in a salvage yard on the African coast. Anyone who's seen Avengers Age of Ultron would recognize this location or might find this location a bit familiar. It is the same place Ulysses S. Claw did his dealings there, and where the fight took place between Ultron and the Avengers on the African coast, literally on this location, where Claw loses his arm. Claw says, bring out the fine china. Not every day the Americans get down in the mucks with him. And Rhodey replies, he's there with him. You can't clean up the world without getting your hands dirty. Rhodey has a headpiece in his ear, and it's Killmonger. And he's telling him this guy can run his mouth all day. Just tell him you want to see the product. Rhodey has to see the vibranium, and Claw shows him a Dora Milaje spear worth $10 million. And, Rhodey says Tony spends $10 million, like that on a slow Tuesday in Vegas. And Claw says now that he knows he means business, he takes him to the giant selection of vibranium that he really has. And Rhodey takes off his hat and he asks, "Where did you find all this?" And just at that moment, the door starts to close and the alarm goes off, and Claw says, "We've been breached. What's going on?" Find them and light them up, and everyone's got their guns and flashlights out. Rhodes pages Killmonger and asks if he has eyes on this. At that exact moment, a guy drops from the roof or the top and face plants down to the ground. Claw backs into the shadows. Just then, Black Panther slams through the window, taking out soldiers. It's great to see Black Panther in his earlier days, I'm guessing. This is around the time of the first Iron Man. Or maybe, if I'm wrong, or maybe, I don't know, this could take place a little later. But at the end, Shuri, across the timeline, this could be taking place over a few years as we're seeing it. But at the end, Shuri is younger. So I like to think that maybe it does take place earlier, almost like the same time period or frame as the first Iron Man movie, or at least the first two. Oh my gosh, this shot of Black Panther walking towards Colonel Rhodes and him shooting, Rhodes shooting. Colonel Rhodes, me referring to him and not as Colonel Rhodes and not as War Machine is kind of cool, because Colonel Rhodes, I really do love Don Cheadle as early Colonel Rhodes. But this is such an original story. We are no longer in the first Iron Man. This is such a spinoff of What If, because we were watching Black Panther walk straight to him, but the animation of this is so sick. And I love the Chadwick Boseman's delivery. "Our quarrel is not with you, Colonel." The way he says that is so perfect. And I really want to watch Black Panther really soon. I think I'm going to have to watch it on Disney Plus. But my problem is I don't want to watch it because I want to review it, but I want to review the movies in order. I'm thinking maybe I'll just have to watch Black Panther separately and just review it. I could just review the movies in the orders I want, maybe. I'm thinking out loud right now, which I don't normally do on the show. But again, I also want to strongly encourage your feedback this episode. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. It will be maybe read on the show. Got an email from Joseph. He asked, "You okay, Senor Honesto? What happened to the zombie episode? You disappeared. Are you doing okay? I've really been enjoying your podcast, Mr. Honest. You bring a really great energy and are entertaining. I hope you didn't get COVID. Please go back to doing the Marvel movies as well." Joseph, thank you so much. For one, I don't know if you meant for that to be read on the show, but I gotta let you know it meant a lot to hear from you. Well, my episode of What If Zombies, my review of it is up now, and it was a little late, and I am not happy to say we are in the timeline in which I got a little off in my posting of the episodes, but I am sitting here tonight on the eve of Party Thor. I know there's a version of Thor in which becomes Party Thor, and I'm really trying to get caught up tonight, and let's see what we can do. It's only due to me being Mr. Honest in the middle of my episode, Marvel Maniac, letting you know that I got a new job at an awesome nerd superstore called Box Lunch, which sells a lot of awesome Marvel stuff. I'm just working a little bit more, and I just got a little behind on the episodes, but doesn't mean I'm not loving this podcast. It's pretty much one of the best things I do, and I'm very proud of it. Back to the episode. "Our quarrel is not with you, Colonel." And Rhodes says, "Really? Because you're sending me kind of mixed messages." And Black Panther says, "Let me take the vibranium back where it belongs." "Sorry, cuz, that ain't gonna fly." And we hear, obviously, Killmonger, and he's using a very giant version of the thing Obadiah Stane used in Iron Man, where he completely just takes all your senses away from you and paralyzes you. And he does that to both Rhodes and Black Panther. While holding the sonic weapon, Killmonger tells Black Panther that he really wishes that it didn't have to go down like this. So I just had to watch this a couple times because it was kind of confusing to me that what happened, because he completely holds Rhodey and Black Panther still in the repulsor gun, and then he blasts Black Panther with it, to which I thought he was just restraining him, but I guess it was just a final blast which finished off his life. Disgusting. So that propulsor gun is just like a chokehold basically on your entire life. Ew. If you really think about it, it's just like clenching your veins. Ew, disgusting. Ew. It really is gross. So Killmonger says Stark R&D is no joke. This sonic taser thing is legit. But this, I'm really feeling. And he takes the Black Panther glove and slices the door open. Rhodey tells him you got to be part of the system to change the system, and Killmonger replies, no, you could just burn it all down. And he stabs Rhodey with the Black Panther gloves. And so he makes it looks like they killed each other. Pretty much. He sets it all up. Klaus says he leaked word of the sale to the Wakandan war dogs, and it all played out just as Killmonger predicted it would. Killmonger takes the sphere and just does this crazy flippy stuff with it. And then he aims it right at Klaus' face. He tells Killmonger to load up the product because the Dora Milaje will be there soon. We get mirrored scenes of both the caskets being carried into their respective places. Rhodes is carried in with an American flag, and Black Panther's is carried with glowing letters, assumed to be Wakanda Forever. Tony does not look happy to the reaction of Rhodes' death on the news. He looks destroyed. Killmonger walks in behind. He tells Tony he brought him a souvenir, which is the sphere, which is already a little like, I'm holding a weapon on you. He says, what, airport gift shop out of Toblerones? We watched in the news, we lost one of our own. Let's show the world who's boss. He said, last I checked, who's boss? And then he said, oh, your name's on the building and the paper trail. You certainly saw that, but not to everything. And then Tony activates a 3D hologram of the scene from the ship. Word to the wise, never play Clue with Jarvis. He sees all. Killmonger says, go ahead, call the cops. They still won't get here in time to save you. Yeah, well, police are the law. I want justice, Tony Stark says. A series of metal panels encloses the room. And even Killmonger doesn't look too surprised by this. But I like to see this fighting Tony. Killmonger says, you never even lifted a finger in your life. What are you going to ask Pepper to come and kill me? He says, yeah, probably not, but there's no need. I melted down that ring of yours. The prototype drone stomps in. A red power source coming from the head. So the vibranium power source glows red when used for power. I think we may seen that in Black Panther when they use it for a power source. I don't know. Tony says, you were right, vibranium worked like a charm. The drone lifts Killmonger into the air. Tony holds up his drink and says, what do you say, to killers? The robot flings Killmonger to the floor, then starts advancing towards him. The drone sends him flying into a wall after Killmonger tries to shoot him, which does nothing. For some reason, Tony goes to remind Killmonger that his moves are the drone's moves. Because he programmed the drone himself. Arch Nemesis 101, you don't speak your plan. Killmonger kicks an object into the drone's head. The drone swipes at him, tearing off Killmonger's shirt. As he dodges blows, Killmonger spots the vibranium sphere and dives between the robot's legs to grab it. He bashes the drone in the head, and Tony gives a concerned look. He climbs onto the drone's shoulders and stabs its power source, electricity arcing over its metal body before it collapses. At which point, Killmonger hurls his sphere at Tony. I just had to read through that beat by beat because I just had to go through every sequence of events because it's traumatic for me and I had to relive it and I just had to go through it like therapy. It was, okay, so this is mirroring the scene in Black Panther where he goes to fight Black Panther for his spot on the throne and wins. I think it even has the music from it, if I'm wrong. Correct me. He has all the scars on him, and he says each one was for a kill, and I was really hoping you wouldn't make the cut, believe it or not. And maybe that's true, but however, it's just, no matter what, it's, Tony wouldn't go down that road, I don't think. Tony says for a minute, I really thought it was you and me against the world. And it's like almost his dying breaths. Killmonger replies, we're not fighting the same battles, Tony. Two gear-headed orphans trying to do right by our fathers sound the same to me, Tony says. The difference between you and me is that you can't see the difference between you and me. And he just pushes the spear deeper into Tony. What a brutal kill. I mean, this is what I'm saying. They're really hurting Tony in front of us here. In this, they know these shows are for MCU super fans, right? So why are they doing this to us? We just lost Iron Man. We just went through COVID. Like, why are you making us lose Iron Man again so many times? And Vision. What are you doing to this Marvel? Can we get Iron Man back now? Like in real life, IRL? We need him. Tony goes limp, his slumped body pinned to the wall by a sphere. I'm using some of the Disney Plus audio description to help me give you some of this description. I'm not going to lie. It is very fun to reanimate and re-dialogue myself a bit. Killmonger lifts a knife and adds a mark to his collection of scars. And I believe in one of the videos I watched, New Rockstars, Everything Always, one of them, maybe Screen Crush, my three sources of the few I watch, they were probably saying that he has less scars, definitely, than in Black Panther. This showed that a symbol of how early this was on the timeline. We crawl back up in space to the Watcher, whose face is ever so clear now. Only his eyes are glowing. But all he's doing is watching. He has nothing to say. General Ross is looking over the scene with Killmonger. Cranium Spear, Wakandan issue, definite hit job, Ross says. The Wakandans wanted to send a message, Killmonger says, not a very subtle one, says Ross. They're playing right into Killmonger's hand. This whole episode, this is kind of like, this thing plays out almost just like everything Killmonger wants the episode. Happy asks, how did none of this get captured by security? And Pepper says Jarvis was wiped clean, conveniently, and looks directly at Eric. Killmonger asks what she's implying, and she says, I don't know, 3 murders in 2 days, 1 man at the center. And Ross defends Killmonger. You're talking to a highly decorated naval officer. Killmonger says, it's cool, General. Her and Tony were tight. He asks General Ross, what's the move? And Ross replies, they want a war, and that's what we'll give them. He says to put the Liberator drones into production. Pepper says to hold on because that will require a multi-billion-dollar allocation, and that the board will need to be consulted. So the military takes control of all Stark Industries assets. Pepper says you must be joking, and Ross says no one's ever accused me of being funny, Miss Potts. We're at war. You work for me now. Now we get a mechanical line of drones being made by Stark Industries of just all of these drones that we saw fighting Killmonger being made to fight for Killmonger. General Ross says, congratulations, Lieutenant, you've just invented 21st century warfare. And overlooking the hangar, Pepper and Happy exchange a worried look before they watch squads of drone soldiers heading into carriers. The carriers land in the desert right next to Claw, Ulysses S. Claw. We're seeing a lot of him this episode. Claw says he's glad to see his vibranium's been put to good use, and Killmonger replies, well, how about a road trip? He's just getting started. They pull up to a blockage in the forest, and he says, you're telling me this is it? And Claw says, Wakandans are full of surprises. Claw switches on the high beams, which reveal the hexagonal pattern on Wakandan's force shield, just ahead of them. He says, Wakanda, I found it, Dad. So he's making his journey there, similar to Black Panther. Okay, not similar to Black Panther. Very different to Black Panther. He's just making his way to Wakanda. Ulysses calls to Killmonger, says, not looking to meet the business end of one of their spears, if you know what I mean. And Killmonger replies, just like you said, Wakandans are full of surprises. And he shoots Claw, which I believe he also does in the main timeline. Because this is exactly what he does, I think, if I'm not wrong, in the original movie. He carries Claw into Wakanda, to the Dora Milaje. They hold their spears at the ready. He says, I come with a gift, an offering of justice. For I am Ndjaka, son of Prince Jobu. He pulls down his lower lip, revealing the Wakandan writing inside, which, another thing he does in the movie, but I believe he does that to Claw. Black Panther's mom says, I don't know her name, so I'm just going to call him Black Panther. Black Panther's mom says, that Killmonger's dad had no children, and Black Panther's dad says, "We were led to believe that. I let us believe that Killmonger is brought into the throne room, and young Shuri asked her father, "We're at war, and how could we trust him? He's an American soldier." Killmonger says, "I brought you the man who stole your vibranium and murdered your people as proof you can trust me. It's proof of my loyalty to Wakanda." King T'Challa's father, he walks right up to Killmonger and looks him straight in the eyes. A very slow moment, and he says, "You have the eyes of your father." Killmonger says, "He used to tell me stories about you, watching the sunset from the top of Mount Bashanga." King T'Chaka said, "I shared the same story with my own son." Killmonger says, "I spent my whole life searching for my home." T'Chaka says, "Rest easy, nephew, you are home," but Killmonger says, "No, well, we cannot rest. War is here." So he's just playing both sides like a dog. I do not like it. But it's smart, but I don't like it. So we see the drones appearing from a mist, very eerie, and it's Killmonger describing what's going on with them. He says, "The drones are made up of vibranium alloy, just like your weapons, almost indestructible." Okoye says, "Oh please, they're built by Americans. We'll be home in time for lunch." I love Okoye. We're getting so much of her this series. Let's give her some love. I freaking love her. Shuri says it will not be that easy. The drones operate via a hive matrix, communicating with each other in real time to maximize strategic efficiency. Black Panther's mom asks, "And how do we cut them off from their network?" I hope I'm not offending anyone by just calling her Black Panther's mom. I think it's funny and endearing. What do you think? MarvelManiac@gmail.com. I'm so sorry. Killmonger says, "We let them inside of our force shields. The electromagnetic interference will block their satellite uplink." Shuri says, "You're suggesting we let the killer robots into the city? That's the only way to disconnect them from the Jarvis AI. After that, we'll destroy them. The Americans won't have any vibranium left to rebuild. Why should we trust you with our people's lives?" Shuri says. Killmonger says, "I know what it's like to have someone taken from me. And if I had the chance to avenge my father, I wouldn't hesitate. These people murdered your son. Even if there was a chance I'm legit, wouldn't it be worth the risk?" he says. And then T'Chaka says to Black Panther's mom, General Mom Panther, "What say you, General?" "She leads the Wakandan army." General Black Panther's mom, "Yes." She says, "For T'Challa, ye Pompey, ye Pompey, ye Pompey." I love it. Killmonger stands with Shuri and T'Chaka looking over the battlefield. General Black Panther's mom and the Wakandan warriors stare off in the distance. The drone army marches forward. In the drone command center back in Nevada, General Ross is overlooking the situation from a big screen, from safety. He asks, "This is the Wakandan capital? Confirm location." And Killmonger tells Shuri it's about time. And she's like, "Are you certain about this, Baba? I'm trusting our fate to this outsider." "He is family," T'Chaka says. "Open the shields." And the shields open, and the metropolitan city of Wakanda appears on the screen of the command center. And General Ross is in shock. He says, "Wakanda, so the rumors are true." A giant drone army marches into Wakanda. It is huge, and the Dora Milaje and the Wakandan army stand strong. It's Milaje, but I always say Milaje. General Ross says, "Show them the true might of the U.S. military." U.S. military. They close the shields, and the drones are locked in with them now. The drones' power sources do go dark, and Ross asks what the hell's going on. Some kind of interference, someone tells him. T'Chaka tells Killmonger that he made his uncle and his father very proud. He says he only wishes to serve Wakanda, and T'Chaka replies, "I only wish you join me in celebration tonight, and know that wherever life's journey takes you, you'll always have a home in Wakanda." To which he quietly replies, "I want a little bit more than that," and he turns the droids back on with the button. Of course he does. You sneaky Killmonger. The drones power back on and continue toward the city. Shuri says that is impossible. The drones should be disconnected. Killmonger says, "Tony Stark, he must have built a backup transmitter." And Shuri says, why would he do that? And Killmonger says, that man was a villain. He didn't trust anyone. Shuri sees right through Killmonger. So much Black Panther potential in Shuri. So much. I know they're going to make her the Black Panther. Like, you could see it. They're like almost like setting it up here a little bit. Like, she is so smart. And it's not even that I'm not putting her up here, but like, I feel like that's so going to happen. I think it's already confirmed almost, isn't it? Isn't it confirmed? I'm almost positive it is. Border Tribe warriors activate their holographic shields. General Black Panther's mom leads the Wakandan army into battle. The Border Tribe shields appear as a single glowing surface as they near the drones at the front line, blocking the robots' blast before the two armies clash. General Black Panther's mom and the Dora jump on top of the backs of the front warriors into the battle. Her name's Ramonda, General Black Panther's mom. We get a really cool shot of Okoye taking out some drones. One of the robots stomps on two shields, separating them and opening fire on the Wakandan forces. Killmonger leaps onto the back of a Wakandan rhino and screams, "Wakanda forever!" We get a Wakanda forever, but it's all manufactured by this psychopath. A high view shows a barrage of blasts in the center of the battlefield as Killmonger and the warriors circle around the side. Killmonger's rhino plows through a cluster of drones, its vibranium horn downing the ones in its path. Epic scenes. I mean, this is epic robot warfare. Wakandans versus robots. It's insanity. Ramonda, aka General Black Panther's mom, sees Killmonger in action and she seems very proud. Electricity arcs over a drone and it collapses, revealing Okoye behind it with her sphere. She bounds over two more robots and cuts them down, continuing her onslaught across the battlefield. She is just going crazy. Killmonger just straight up saves Okoye. So there's like a lot of love here too. He wants to save certain people. He's got agendas for certain people. You know, some intentions are a little unknown to me in this episode for him. Killmonger and Okoye stand back to back as drones surround them. Together, the duo takes on the horde of drones, slicing and stabbing them with their spears. The last of the surrounding robots goes down, revealing Ramona behind it. It's General Black Panther's mom, guys. She nods to Killmonger and he yells, "Wakanda forever!" She hurls her sphere through two drones and rips it out. She screams for T'Challa as tears drip down her face. That's actually very sad. Okoye holds her sphere up along with the whole army, and they're screaming, "Yipampe, Yipampe." I love it. It's so heartwarming. In a way, because you just keep remembering Killmonger did this. We see General Ross kind of flip out in a little bit of anger over losing the drones and losing connection to them. Then we see Killmonger put one final blow into the Stark drone, into Stark. Kind of a symbol of what he did to Stark. Destroyed Tony Stark and Iron Man and his legacy in this universe. Obliterated Black Panther. And for whatever else is to hit in the future of this timeline, like, let's say the Chitauri attacking and, you know, the Infinity War and the Civil, whatever else is to hit, you know, that's just going to be open door stuff, you know, no Iron Man tech, nothing. I just can't even, my mind can't even I can't even wrap my head around it. Like, there's so, that's what the multiverse, like, you can't theorize all of it. Later, the Watcher looms in the sky, his glowing eyes fixed on Killmonger standing on Mount Bushanga, which is the mountain, you know, in the area of Wakanda. And a beautiful sunset animation. It's just so gorgeous. He's looking out over the sunset. But the Watcher just looks concerned. As he gazes out over the vast land before him, he smiles. T'Chaka joins him. He asks, "Does it meet your expectations?" And he says, "It surpasses them. I wish we could share it with our brothers and our sisters across the world." He says, "Your father wished the same." He says, "Perhaps that is why Bast has returned you to us." And Killmonger says, "I am a loyal servant of Wakanda, Your Majesty. Let me be of service." And as he's looking at the ground, he just grimaces, so evilly. This is so evil. "With this herb, you shall become the next Black Panther." He drinks the herb. Killmonger drinks the heart-shaped herb. He lies back and closes his eyes. He awakens on the ancestral plane. He sees 3 Black Panthers glowing in the nearby tree. One walks down to him and he's talking. He says, "Was it worth it? It's T'Challa, my cousin." And he says, "Yeah, I did what I had to do." "For what? A throne?" T'Challa says. "For vengeance, for my father, and for all my brothers and sisters who suffered through oppression. Well, you just sat back and watched," he says to T'Challa. T'Challa says, "You believe the cure for human suffering is more suffering?" And he says, "No, the cure is power, and now I have it." And T'Challa says, "Because you stole it. Power unearned can be a very volatile force, cousin. It'll get the best of you eventually." And Killmonger walks out in his Black Panther uniform with the gold Killmonger uniform, looking out over Wakanda. "On your plane or ours, it'll get the best of you," T'Challa tells him. And we linger on Killmonger's face looking at T'Challa for a second, and we cut to a giant frame picture of Tony Stark saying, only you can avenge Tony Stark. Ross tells Pepper that destroyers are circling the African coast. He wants all Jericho missiles locked and loaded by 0600. Well, he's telling his commander that, and he's with Pepper. And she says, "All due respect, isn't that a lot of firepower to aim at a country that isn't on the map?" And he says, "With all due respect, it's not going to be anymore," pretty much, after this. Pepper goes into Tony's old office to catch a breath, and she finds Shuri there in Tony's desk. And she's very surprised. And she says, "Well, how did you get in here?" She tells Pepper that she's here to help, and she gives Pepper a file. She slides Pepper the tablet with intel on Killmonger. "I knew it. He killed Tony," says Pepper. "And your brother? How did you get this?" "Mr. Stark was a genius, but he's not the only genius. It appears we have a common enemy," Shuri says. And Pepper says, "Unfortunately, your side and mine refuses to see it." Shuri says, "So, let us open their eyes together." And they stare at each other, kind of smiling. And this is a younger Shuri, and she's a genius. And this is kind of very interesting because, again, we get a cliffhanger. A cliffhanger, and a cliffhanger. This is episode... what? 7? No, this is episode 6. Okay. So we got 4 more after this. And this is probably a good 6 cliffhangers. I mean, I'm very interested in how all of these will tie up, if they will, in this season. So he says, "Heroes are never really gone. They live forever, as do the ones they inspire to carry on the fight." So Black Panther, T'Challa inspires Shuri, and Tony brings Pepper, and they still have the flames of their former heroes. It almost makes me wonder if we're going to get a Black Panther, Shuri, and an Iron Man Pepper in this, as they do inspire to carry on the fight. And we get the end of the episode, and this was, I will say, it wasn't my favorite of the series, and I can honestly say that, but it was insane. And this show takes leaps, brave leaps, into new territory every episode, and with that I give it the most credit. It is a fun, exciting show, Marvel's What If, and every week I have no idea what I'm getting into, which is, I can't honestly tell you how literally lucky I feel, and as a fan of Marvel, coming into these shows, which is why I actually feel like I am a little aware of that. I do want to say, because I don't want to waste these episodes. I don't want to waste them. I don't want to throw up a review or a reaction to them that I regret, which is why I wouldn't put out my What If Zombies half-heartedly, because I knew What If Zombies was a big episode. Captain America as a zombie was going to be fighting Bucky as a zombie. I thought that was a big deal. So for me, me reacting to that was important in the right way. It was very important to me, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm not going to keep this ending too long because we're getting very long on this episode. I don't know what I did on this one to make it extra long, but maybe we're getting a little ranty. Maybe it's just that we've been a bit and we're catching up a bit. And it's good to be back here with you today at Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. Again, I'm your host, Mr. Honest. aka Eric Cicada. I did that backwards, but we're going to keep it because we're getting out of here. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Marvel Maniac Pod, and email us marvelmaniacpod@gmail.com. If you'd like to donate it to us right now, the best place would be paypal.me/marvelmaniacpod or at marvelmaniacpod on PayPal. And everything goes right back into the show. We have another episode coming out next to now. We should have all the episodes up right now. The following episode of Marvel's What If, which I don't know the name of at this exact airing time, should be up and airing, and we should be caught up. And I hope you are enjoying yourself. I hope you're having a great day, week, month, year, wherever you are in this moment in time, in the multiverse, in the sacred timeline, glorious purpose. Until we meet again, Avengers, disassemble.